On tonight's Wales at 6, moments after murder, the gang members facing jail for killing a woman on a doorstep. Joanne Penny was shot at point-blank range. The opposition leader Kemi Badenoch says she won't rule out working with Reform if they were to lead in May's Senedd election. Happy 200th birthday to the Menai Suspension Bridge, the first physical link between Anglesey and the rest of Wales. And a culinary trip down memory lane. We look back at the huge success story of national milk bars. Hello, good evening to you. Members of an organised crime gang who plotted to shoot a rival, leaving an innocent woman dead, have been found guilty of playing their part in the scheme. Joanne Penny was shot at point-blank range after opening the door at a house in Rhondda last March. Today, 4 members of the gang were convicted of murder following a 3-month trial. Richard Morgan has been following this case for us and is at Cardiff Crown Court tonight. Richard.
Well, Andrea, the jury have been deliberating for a week, and this afternoon they returned unanimous verdict in all 5 defendants in this case, finding Joshua Gordon, Jordan Mills-Smith, Melissa Quayle-Dashper and Christina Ginniver guilty of murder. They found Tony Porter not guilty of murder, but convicted him of participation in the activities of an organised crime group. Now, as you say, this all relates to the shocking events of last year when a 40-year-old woman was shot fatally on a doorstep in Talbot Green. March the 9th last year in Talbot Green. 2 men, followed by a woman, walk casually along a road. Moments later, they get into a car. It all looks innocuous. You wouldn't know that moments earlier, one of them had shot dead a perfect stranger. That stranger was Joanne Penny, a 40-year-old mother who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The man who killed her was Marcus Huntley, a 21-year-old would-be gangster. He'd agreed to shoot someone, anyone, in revenge for disrespect shown to him and his associates by a rival drugs gang. Today, 5 others were found guilty of playing their parts in what happened. The turf war between the 2 gangs unfolded here on the streets of Talbot Green in Rhondda. One group, led by a man called Daniel Joseph, or Jimmy, was already operating here. But when a rival group known as the Rico gang from the Midlands started dealing drugs too, there were violent clashes. A car carrying Marcus Huntley was rammed. On another occasion, a gang member was violently assaulted here at 10 Fleece Ilted. For the Rico group, it was the final straw. A plan was hatched to shoot someone at the house in Talbot Green in what the prosecution called a show of strength. Joshua Gordon was the head of the group. A voice note recovered from his phone showed his intent to commit violence. "Need to sort this guy out," he said. "I want to get this cheater dealt with ASAP." The next day, CCTV shows a car pulling up near Halfords in Talbot Green. Gordon stays inside. 3 others get out. Jordan Mills-Smith, a friend of Marcus Huntley's, was to play the part of lookout while Huntley carried out the shooting. Melissa Quayle-Dashper was used as a decoy, knocking on the door to encourage those inside to open up. Today, Gordon was found guilty of murder and participating in the activities of an organised crime group. Jordan Mills-Smith was also found guilty of murder, as was Melissa Quayle-Dashper and Christina Ginniver, Gordon's partner, who tried to cover for him by making calls on his phone.
"I was only the driver, nothing else."
Tony Porter, who drove the 4 to the scene, was found not guilty of murder, but was convicted of participation in the activities of an organised crime group. This was the gun used in the shooting, a starter pistol modified to fire live rounds. That evening, Huntley took a selfie of himself holding his fingers in a gun pose. The court heard Joanne Penny was not specifically targeted, but Huntley told police it was her fault she was killed for living in a crack den. The streets of Talbot Green saw major police activity in the days after the shooting, while shocked members of the community visited the scene to pay their own tributes. Tonight, 6 members of an organised crime group are in prison awaiting sentence, guilty of waging a turf war with tragic consequences on the streets of South Wales. Well, this isn't the end of this story. Another 6 defendants are due to go on trial here next month in connection with what happened in Talbot Green. One of them is accused of murder. And this case has shone a light on the issue of county lines drugs operations. That's when crime gangs from outside Wales try to start selling drugs here. And it's revealed how such activities go hand in hand with violence. Shootings are incredibly rare in Wales. In fact, it's thought the last fatal shooting here took place 15 years ago. So worrying from that point of view, Andrea. As for Joanne Penny's family, they said tonight that they were devastated by the tragic loss of our beloved Joanne. She was a daughter, mother, sister and niece, loved deeply by all who knew her. Her kindness, strength and love for her family will never be forgotten. Andrea.
Richard, thank you. Richard Morgan there following the case for us at Cardiff Crown Court. Elsewhere tonight, defections from the Conservative Party to reform have moved from a trickle to a flood in recent weeks, with MP after MP joining Nigel Farage's ranks. In the Senate, the party's kicked out one prominent member after he held talks with Reform too. Today, on a visit to Cardiff, UK leader Kemi Badenoch said she had full faith in the decision to expel James Evans. But with the Conservatives languishing in the polls and set for a tough campaign in May, where is the party headed here in Wales? Hamish Alskerry has more.
The leaders of the opposition in Westminster and in Cardiff Bay, but both Darren Millar and Kemi Badenoch's team of parliamentary colleagues has been shrinking in recent weeks.
I, James Evans.
Sacked 10 days ago after being accused of flirting with a move to reform, this man would otherwise have been front and centre in today's Conservative Party photo. The visit to the Senedd today was a chance for Kemi Badenoch to rally those left in the Welsh Conservative ranks.
Do you think your leader in Wales, Darren Millar, was a bit gung-ho in sacking James Evans?
I trust Darren Millar completely. He has great judgment. He is a man of integrity who's doing his job for public service. I think he'll be a great First Minister. And if he believes someone should go, then I trust that that person needed to go.
Was this just a case of clearing out the rubbish, as you described the sacking of Robert Jenrick earlier this month?
No, I certainly never described anyone as rubbish. I have said that Nigel Farage is doing my spring cleaning because a lot of people who shouldn't be in the Conservative Party are now leaving.
Her party now faces another fight for survival in Wales. Results in traditional heartlands, like here in the Vale of Glamorgan, will be a key test in May. At the last Senedd election, the Conservatives came second in this constituency, with nearly 36% of the vote. The last poll, though, for ITV Cymru Wales has the party across Wales down at just 10% in 5th position. So do voters here in Cowbridge think that Kemi Badenoch is the right person to stage a fight back?
Well, I think she's a breath of fresh air and she's come into quite feisty because it's difficult taking over a position.
I think she's principled and she's following her principles, which is to be commended, isn't it? But yeah, as I say, I just think as a leader she hasn't got the charisma that people are going to get behind.
She's okay to me. Seems to have a bit more about her than the other leaders that they might have had. And some of the leaders, some of the other parties have got as well. So she's probably the best of a bad bunch, I think.
We've got some work to do before then.
Back in Cardiff, Kemi Badenoch says her priorities for the year very much include the Senedd election.
Can Darren Millar become the First Minister after May?
Yes, of course he can. I mean, there's proportional representation in Wales. Anything could happen. But what I want people to know,
Will you work with Reform to make that work?
If you want Conservatives, you have to vote Conservatives. If you vote anything else, you will not have good Conservative representation.
Would you rule out a deal with Reform after the Senedd election?
Well, Darren is going to make the best decision after those elections. Right now, we're not talking about deals. People talking about deals before elections are not really interested in helping the public. They're just interested in fixing things for themselves.
Can you just rule it out then?
After the election, Darren will make up his mind as who is best to help deliver a Conservative agenda, and that's who he's going to work with. Hopefully we will have enough numbers of our own, but if we don't, he will make that call.
And her party could still play a crucial role in the makeup of the next Welsh Government. But with fewer than 100 days to go, the task ahead for Kemi Badenoch and the Welsh Conservative team couldn't really be any bigger.
Well, Hamish is at the Zenith for us this evening. A positive outlook being painted there by Ms Badenoch, but it's a big challenge ahead, isn't it?
Andrea, Kemi Badenoch was open about the mistakes her party has made. She accepted the challenge of rebuilding faith among the public in her party, but she was very enthusiastic about her party's policy positions for the upcoming election. She said if Darren Millar becomes the First Minister, they'll abolish stamp duty in Wales, they'll scrap business rates for the high street and reverse the controversial 20-mile-an-hour zone policies. But to make that happen, she says she's fighting for every single vote. Now, the new electoral system, the proportional voting system in this upcoming election, means there is a great deal of uncertainty about the makeup of the Zenith after that election day. You'd imagine that's partly why she's unhappy to rule out any deal with reform, because nobody knows quite how the maths is all going to work out after election night. She will face trickier visits to Wales, you'd imagine too. Today was about meeting with party faithfuls in the Zenith. She or her team promised that she would be back in the coming months to meet with voters and travel around the country to make her case. And as you heard in my report, she will find some support. One lady I spoke to today said she reminded her of Margaret Thatcher. She will like that comparison. There were, though, others who simply either hadn't heard of her or weren't convinced and were voting for some of the other parties here in Wales. What we do know is that the polls have been consistently not looking great for the Conservatives over the past year or so. But as always, a lot can change in the next 3 months.
Hamish, thank you very much. Well, still to come. Ruth's here to tell us how that weekend weather is looking.
I am, yes. Well, let's just say it's not the worst. We are warning free, which is actually almost a first. Although that is the good news. For the slightly less good news, well, I'll see you in a few minutes.
Well, somebody who will be heading for a change in the weather is bobslayer Mica Moore, who will be competing in next month's Winter Olympics for Jamaica. It's exactly 2 centuries today that something revolutionary happened between Anglesey and the mainland. The iconic Menai suspension bridge opened for business and created the first physical link between the island and the rest of Wales. Well, 200 is quite a birthday to celebrate, and there's rather a large history to celebrate at that. So we sent our own Rob Shelley down to the shores of the Menai.
It is a long silver symbol of Wales, that first thread that directly connected Anglesey to the mainland. It's been a point on the landscape for so long it's actually become a part of the landscape. The Menai suspension bridge opened to horses, carriages and human beings exactly 200 years ago today. The horsepower may have changed a bit, maybe we have too, but the grace of this bridge certainly hasn't. The elegance of this thing, this beautiful thing.
It is, and it's a strange thing to look at a bridge and say that's beautiful, because it's man-made, it's not natural per se, and yet the way the bridge has been designed and even changed over the centuries to fit what we need today, it's stunning.
Apparently, this time 200 years ago, Thomas Telford, the man who designed this bridge and created several other landmarks across North Wales, didn't actually turn up for the bridge's formal opening. He does live in Menai Bridge in mannequin form in a museum dedicated to his life and work. But even his waxwork self looks a little bit forbidding. As a way to stake your claim on posterity, it's quite a cool thing really, isn't it?
Well, yes, but I mean, Thomas Telford, his stake in posterity is far greater than this single bridge.
It's still a thing of wonder, something both simple and complex at the same time. Simple enough that a child could draw the outline of it, complex enough that this combination of physics and mathematics holds traffic up 200 years on. Now, no one really knows if Telford would either approve or disapprove of all this fuss, but down by the bridge's footings and its very elegant outline, they did unveil something to remember those 2 centuries by.
When we build modern bridges, we design them for 120 years.
Wow!
I'm not sure when Telford sat down with his pencil that he thought, right, the design life of this bridge is going to be 200 years.
So it's either a really lucky bonus or the man knew what he was doing and then some.
He was a genius. He is the civil engineer.
It still turns heads, it still defies the tides of Anglesey, it still works. Rob Shelley, ITV News, in Menai Bridge.
Some beautiful pictures there. Well, time for a look at the sport now.
Powering local sport in the community. Octopus Energy sponsors ITV Cymru Wales Sports Report.
Welsh athlete Mica is part of the fastest female British bobsleigh team in Olympic history. But when she takes to the track at the Winter Games in Milan next month, she'll be wearing different colours. The 33-year-old will be representing Jamaica and will now compete against Great Britain in the monobob event. Matt Southcombe went to meet her.
This is Mica Moore in 2018, preparing to represent Great Britain at the Winter Olympics in Pyongyang. But now she wears a different flag. At this year's Winter Olympics, she'll represent Jamaica, the nation of her grandfather. Venson Byfield settled in Wales as part of the Windrush generation, and Moore feels a strong connection to her Jamaican roots.
I just know that everything, like that fire that's in my heart, I know has come from him. I didn't have the honour of meeting him. He passed when I was very young, but being able to do this and being on this journey is like a way for me to connect with my heritage. It's been really lovely.
And there's also been support from elsewhere in the family to combat funding challenges, with Moore's grandmother helping to pay for a new sled.
Her only request was that she could go down in a bobsleigh, and I was like, Nan, you're 90 plus years old now, I'm not sure we can make that happen. But what we did do was put a sticker on my bobsleigh. So she's been down some of the fastest tracks in the world.
Obviously with Jamaican bobsleigh, I'm sure people have brought the film up in the past.
Yeah.
Does that get tiresome?
No, it never gets tiresome. The cool running quotes never get tiresome.
Moore has represented Wales in the Commonwealth Games as well as Great Britain at the Winter Olympics. But she left the British bobsleigh programme in 2022, citing what she called damaging and offensive behaviour towards the Black, Asian and minority ethnic community and women. The British Bobsleigh and Skeleton Association said the complaint didn't relate to a member of their staff, but a warning was issued.
To be able to, have that option to represent another nation is something that not a lot of people get. Obviously, it's no secret that there's been difficult times with British bobsleigh, but I think it's important at the minute to just focus on the positives of what's happening. A Caribbean nation has qualified for another Winter Olympic.
And just lastly then, if your grandfather was here, what do you hope you would sort of make of what you're about to do?
There's a lot of emotion in that. This has been such a long journey, and 2 years ago it was almost the end of the journey for me. I almost couldn't do it anymore. And I am so, so grateful to Jamaica for allowing me this possibility to remain in the sport. And yeah, I'm just so happy, and I really, really hope that it can make my granddad proud.
And you just sense that somewhere Mr. Byfield has a smile on his face. Because once again, Jamaica has a bobsleigh team. And Newport's Mica Moore is at the heart of it. Matt Southcombe, ITV News.
It is at 19 minutes past 6 now. You're watching Wales at 6, a reminder of our top story. Members of an organised crime gang who plotted to shoot a rival, leaving an innocent woman dead, have been found guilty of playing their part in the scheme. Joanne Penny was shot at point-blank range after opening the door at a house in Rhondda last March. Today, 4 members of a gang were convicted of murder following a 3-month trial. Still to come on the ITV Evening News.
Coming up, a man's jailed for life for the premeditated murder of hotel worker Rhiannon White. The Prime Minister's progress in China. Beijing agrees to lift sanctions on British MPs and peers. And remembering Dame Jilly Cooper. The Queen joins celebrities for a special memorial for the late author. So do join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Charlene with you shortly. Now, a time for a culinary trip down memory lane. If vanilla milkshakes, ice cream sundaes and fish and chips were parts of your childhood, you probably visited a national milk bar. It was a family-run chain that began way back in the 1930s with branches across Wales and England. You won't see them on the high street anymore, but it was once a huge success story. And it all began in Powys, as Adiola Jewis has been finding out.
Like most high streets in Wales, this corner of Welshpool once boasted a green and white building that was part and parcel of everyday life. Think chocolate milkshakes, frothy coffees, and knickerbocker glories.
These buildings were once a national milk bar. There were 17 of these cafes cum restaurants right across Mid, West and North Wales. The business began in the 1930s, and it was the brainchild of Caroline's grandparents.
Willie and Florence Griffiths were both from farming families. They had big ideas. They wanted to make it a really modern farm. The late 20s, there was also appearing in London 1 or 2 places called milk bars. Of course, this attracted my grandfather's attention because he thought, it sounds like something I could do. Yeah. And so my grandfather really adopted this idea in quite a big way. And he thought, right, I produce a lot of milk. I can do this. I can sell my produce direct to the public.
By the end of the 30s, the family had launched 10 national milk bars. And more branches popped up during the 50s and 60s. There were even branches in Liverpool, Birmingham, and Manchester.
We found out that there was a young group of guys going regularly into the milk bar in Liverpool. You probably know what's going. Who we found out were the Beatles. Apparently, it's in Brian Epstein's memoirs. He was the first Beatles manager, and he'd written in his memoirs that they went to celebrate in our milk bar in Lime Street.
A familiar face in the Welshpool branch was its manager, Helen, who'd worked for the company since the age of 13.
It was the best years of my life. It was all of the people that you met coming in. They were the family to you.
With that family feeling, I bet you knew every single customer and all of their habits and what they might have to eat.
I did. You know, they were going to have glazed chips and peas and then lemon meringue pie afterwards with a pot of tea. I don't think there is one best memory at all. There's so many. Yeah.
The Welshpool branch closed in 2010. Today, there are no national milk bars left in Wales.
It's always sad when things decline. So many people have happy memories, people who went on first dates, people who went there with their families. It created a lot of joy for a lot of people.
And you can watch the full story on tonight's Vanished Wales. That's at 7 p.m. tonight here on ITV1 Wales. Look forward to that. Some emotional recollections there. Some great archive, isn't there?
Everybody's sort of eyes kind of at shepherd's pie for £4.95, and it takes you back to say, I remember when a packet of Polos was 10 pence. Other mints are, of course, available. Do you remember those days?
Oh, the cost of living now.
I tell you, I'm aging myself here. Stamp was 17p for a first or a second class? Anyway, those were the days. Yes, all very memorable indeed. indeed. Perhaps not quite so memorable is the weather that we've had this week. Most of us would like to forget it. It's been frankly miserable, hasn't it? And I did promise you that the weekend was looking so here it is in a nutshell. There will be, yes, you guessed it, showers or possibly longer spells of rain. Largely grey and gloomy skies with perhaps just a few slivers of sunshine. Catch them if you can. And in terms of temperature, I think generally as further north you go, this is where you'll notice it feeling much, much fresher. And it's all thanks to our old friend low pressure. One area followed by another, followed by another. Now Sunday, this is I think your best chance of seeing possibly something a little bit drier, maybe a little bit brighter. But as I said, that sunshine is going to be really rather fleeting. And I mentioned cold temperatures. There is the possibility that perhaps into next week we could see the S word, snow falling over Aruri, the hills and mountains. Nothing too disruptive.
Today's forecast, blue skies, followed by a spread of hot and cold plates. TUI sponsors ITV Cymru Wales weather.
Well, it's not particularly cheerful out there at the moment. There are some dry spells, but an awful lot of wet weather. Again, squally showers swirling their way round, and some of these falling as quite heavy downpours, so just be careful on the roads out there. Lots of low cloud, misty, murky conditions where we do see some drier spells, and as the winds drop back, we could see the return of some rather dense pockets of mist and fog as we start the coming weekend. So just be careful again if you are making any early journeys. Not particularly cheerful as we wake to Saturday. So that mist and murk will take quite a while to shift. In fact, I think sunshine is going to be a case of, well, grab it if you can. Very little indeed in terms of blue sky. Further showers swirling their way round, easing slightly into Saturday afternoon. Temperatures holding at around 8 or 9 degrees. Nothing too special. About right, really, for the time of year. And if you're making any plans to head out through Saturday evening and overnight, it's not looking too bad. Again, perhaps just a scattering of squally showers, hit and miss, but nothing too troublesome. Sunday itself is looking, well, frankly, it's just another one of those days. It's a case of dodge the showers. There will be cloudy conditions, misty, murky conditions as well. It's just a case of same old, effectively. But we could see some drier conditions, certainly, than Saturday. So I think of the 2 days of the weekend, Sunday looks perhaps just a little, well, I would say more cheerful, but I don't think it's going to be particularly cheerful. It just should be much drier across much of Wales. A gentle breeze, again, similar temperatures, 8 or 9 in Celsius. And as far as your outlook is concerned, well, the signs are that it's very much a case of more of the same as we head into next week. Grey, gloomy conditions, bits and pieces of rain, and if anything, the temperatures are going to feel that little bit cooler as well.
TUI sponsors ITV Cymru Wales weather.
Bet you wish you hadn't asked now.
Well, I keep looking at the longer range forecast on the old app, and
it's just cold. It's cold, but then it's kind of January, but nearly February.
Wet.
Almost.
Wet.
I know. Sorry.
Thank you for joining us this Friday evening. Rich is back with the headlines later on from us. Bye-bye.